I've been an admirer of Bartees Strange since his first album, really. Live Forever I thought was really good, had some excellent songs on it, got Mustang, Boomer. There's a song called Boomer on there, come on man, it's a really fun indie rock album that I thought was, promising for his potential talent. You also then had Farm to Table, which I would argue had the highest highs of his career. I thought Heavy Heart, Mulholland Drive are excellent songs. I think I included Mulholland Drive in my favourite tracks of the 2020 so far, which is high praise, so you should definitely watch that video to get more recommendations as well. But yeah, as an indie rock artist, I think he's one of the best around right now. I thought Farm to Table was held back by some of its inconsistency. I didn't quite think the quality was there from start to end, but like I say, those highs were absolutely undeniable. And he just has a knack for like creating this really anthemic, really buzzy, just exciting rock tune that just keeps me coming back. You know, all his albums so far have just had those stupidly high highs that I think are easily some of the best rock tunes of the 2020s so far. You just can't go wrong with Bartees Strange, particularly if you're a rock music fan, and particularly if you're a rock music fan that thinks a lot of rock music at the moment is pretty underwhelming, which I know a lot of you out there do think that, which is fair enough. I can definitely see why, but look no further than this guy, because this album right here, Horror, contrary to popular belief that the album cover says Ham, I do get that. It does look a little bit like Ham. I get it. I get you. I see you. I get you. But Horror is, his best album so far to me. One of the best rock albums of 2025 for sure, and an early favourite of mine. I haven't had too many major highlights for 2025 so far. We are in the middle of February, but this is another one that's definitely been added to the year-end list. It's a really cool indie rock album that can't really just be pigeonholed as indie rock. This guy is very willing to branch out and touch quite a few different genres, even within a single song, but also across this album where you're getting some kind of punk vibes coming through, you're getting some like R&B soul vibes coming through, and of course you're just getting straight up rock anthems as well. You can clearly see in interviews where he talks about his influences that range from like 50 Cent to like friggin' Steely Dan to Fleetwood Mac, etc, that this guy very much appreciates and loves music and pours his heart into the music and shows us that he is not really ever just going to be one singular genre guy. And that might put off some people. I've read a few reviews that people have kind of just felt like he's not really sticking to one sound and doing it well. But for me personally, man, I have to disagree with that. I think he is really finding a way to make this style interesting and keeping you on your toes throughout the album, where you're just kind of not really sure what you're going to get next with each track, but also the consistency remains really high and the song quality is just there. And I've got to shout out Jack Antonoff here as well, by the way. This guy is really proving the world wrong. Like, it is really only his Taylor Swift stuff that is beginning to get really dry and drab. For the rest of everybody else he's collaborating with, Kendrick Lamar in 2024, by the way, he had some production credits on Kendrick's music in 2024, which is insane. And now also we've got this production on a Bartees Strange album, which again is kind of highlighting that the guy has quite a heavy load of diversity to his repertoire. Too Much starts off the album. It's got this really smoky vibe to it, these muffled vocals. I really like the kind of vibe that comes through. It kind of sounds like some really fuzzy old school indie rock, you know, like sort of like, I guess, Guided by Voices, sort of Built to Spill, any of that kind of vibe from the 90s. I feel like that's really being channeled through this track here, and I do know a lot of like indie rock nerds that could absolutely be all over this type of thing, who love that era of music as well. While I don't think the album itself has a horror vibe to it, I do feel as though the album cover might set up people to think you're going to get some like clipping horror vibes or some shit across this album, where like the tracks are these conceptual songs about like zombies or monsters or whatever, which we did get on the most recent clipping album. I will implore you to take that off your mind if you're entering this album for a second, because it doesn't really delve into that. The horrors are more kind of like the fears and the anxieties that Bartees suffers through and faces on many of these tracks. But I will say the Hit It Quit It track, I do feel it has probably the closest horror menace to it, with the kind of like down-tuned guitars and the really like sluggish chorus that feels really depressed and, you know, over everything. But yeah, other than that, I will say the album doesn't really follow that trend. So if you were expecting that, definitely take that out of your mind when you listen to the album. Beyond the first two tracks, which may have a bit more of a muddy kind of old school quality to them, you just get these really like excellent rock bangers for the next few songs, man. Not to say I don't like the first two, by the way, I still do like those, but man, once you hit Sober, you're locked in. You're really locked into the classic Bartees Strange sound. Jesus Christ, man. The rhythmic guitars sound great, the anthemic chorus, it's just everything you want from him, man. He's just so good at doing this. It kind of has like a Gaslight Anthem energy, which makes a lot of sense knowing that Jack Antonoff is on the production credits of this album, given that Bleachers quite literally are kind of like, you know, calling back to that Heartland rock age of music, and Gaslight Anthem very much live in that lane as well. So yeah, kind of didn't pick up on the fact that Jack Antonoff initially was on the production, but once I realized he was, I was like, hold on, man, this makes so much sense why I'm getting Gaslight Anthem vibes. So yeah, if you're a Bleachers fan as well, you'd probably enjoy this track. But yeah, I really enjoy some of the lyrics that he manages to muster up as well on some of these songs, where he says, never had a guiding light, that's why it's so hard to be sober, which I think very much encompasses, encapsulates, whatever word you want to use, the entire album's ethos, really, where the songs are just very much, again, like I've already said, dealing with those anxieties, dealing with, you know, the lack of guiding light, being able to, you know, show Bartees the way. Wants Needs. I will continue to champion this song right up until the very end of this year, as calling it one of the best songs of the year. There is no way this is going to be taken out of my year-end list when it comes to the songs list, man. Once again, Bartees Strange absolutely killing it with a rock anthem. This is just very much the creme de la creme of the album, and the creme de la creme of what this guy is able to do, man. The fuzziness of the guitars, it sounds great. The chorus transition is fantastic. Oh my God, what a song! It's so explosive. It's kind of like got a block party vibe to it as well. I feel like once you hear the chorus, you'll see exactly what I mean. And then that extended outro at the end, I feel as though anybody that fell in love with Silent Alarm like I did way back when will totally get what I mean with that comparison. Now that genre shifting and blending really becomes very apparent when you hit Lovers, because immediately after Wants Needs you do not expect to get a song like this. But what are we going with here? It's got this kind of like weird underground club vibe, like almost as if like Shy Girl is producing this song. Yeah, I cannot believe I'm referencing Shy Girl in an indie rock album review. And again, maybe it's these tracks that are putting people off this album and feeling as though this isn't working for them. I get it. I feel like on any given day I could hear that transition and just be like, nah, I'm not feeling this right now. But as it stands, I've listened to this album multiple times now, and it's still hitting, man. It's still hitting. I really appreciate what he was trying to do here. The track itself has such a weird, jaunty rhythm to it. Yeah, his vocals are really like gruff and smoky. I kind of feel like it works. And then you go into Doomsday Buttercup, which has got this like soft dream pop vibe to it as well. So yeah, I think for an album that you want just consistency from start to end, you're not going to fully get that here, but I appreciate that actually it kind of is working for me. In fact, I would even argue and say that there's this kind of like Gene Dawson vibe across this album, particularly on a North Gun track where he is pretty much kind of giving that youthful energy. It's a bit of rapping on there. There's a They Hate Change feature, who I've been liking since they broke out onto the scene. Pretty surprised to see them on a Bartees Strange song, but again, it's pretty cool and fun. And that Gene Dawson energy, I feel like lives throughout this album. I don't know if there's any kind of reference point for Bartees Strange here, but anything that I've took from a Gene Dawson album before and really enjoyed, Chaos Now, which again, darts around different styles. I feel like that soul is living in this album here too. So yeah, I kind of feel like there's something to that. It works for me is what I'm trying to say. 17, which I think is another highlight from this album, another track that could easily become a fan favorite amongst his catalog. I can absolutely see it, and yeah, really, really lovely stuff here, kind of speaking to his mum, and you know, kind of feels like it's kind of like that dynamic between your parents and you, and it kind of just going a bit awry. The lyric which I think stands out the most on this track is where he says, "You ain't wrong to go that way, what I'd give to make you stay," which for the first section of the song, it has like this like R&B soul vibe to it. It's very, very kind of chill, it's quite somber, but then it hits a point where he says that line later in the song, but he belts it out, and it just again transitions into this rock anthem, which is fantastic. I just love the fact that he managed to have this same bit in a completely different context in the same song, and then he changes that context and it still fits how the lyrics fit and how he's singing, and it all works. It's just like a really cool genre blend for me. I really like. But yeah, I'm just so impressed with how he managed to pull a song like this off. It's just working for me, man. It's just working for me. What is it? Freaking Loop Defenders, which is like this track where he's rapping on it. Like, he has been known to rap a little bit. It's maybe like fast singing. He's not like rapping. But again, that hip hop influence that he talks about in interviews clearly shines through on his albums, because he every now and then kind of slips into that. It's kind of interesting to see. And then of course I mentioned already the They Hate Change feature, who are a rap duo. Yeah, the guy's got his knowledge very, very on display on his albums, I feel, because all of these different styles coming together shouldn't necessarily work, but for me it does. I think it does, and that's why I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. I think it's his best album to date. I really do. I think so far he's shown potential with his first 2 albums. This one I think is really honed in on that kind of diversity that he's displayed, and he's really just managed to make it all fit together in a really cool way. Some really interesting lyrics throughout this album too. The writing is really, really sharp and super personal across all these tracks, done in a really interesting way. For me, the way he passionately sings, I always appreciate as well. Yeah, I know this review on this channel probably won't pull in the usual kind of viewers that I would get perhaps for like a more mainstream album. I fully get that Bartees Strange isn't a massive name amongst music, but I do implore you to hopefully check this out based on my recommendation, because I do genuinely think it's great. One of the best albums of the year as well. And yeah, hopefully you guys check it out based on this review. Have a good day. Tell me what I should review next. Subscribe, absolutely subscribe. Please do that. Check out my Patreon. I'm feeling really generous. And then maybe become a member of the channel, which you can now do. Click the link in the description if you're considering wanting to do that. Goodbye.